Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you our real experience with blockchain and all other emerging technologies. Firstly, I would like to thank the organization for giving us the opportunity to have this slot to share this real experience. And on behalf of my everis and NTT Data colleagues, we would like to be with you in this experience. The idea is to be dynamic and to share all our lesson learned in that domain, and above all, how we have achieved the success to create some projects that are in the production environment. So firstly, let me share with you how we have split the presentation, the deck. Firstly, we are going to share our introduction. Let me introduce myself and our company, everis NTT Data, what are we doing in the blockchain arena, and beyond that, how we are combining IoT and blockchain with a real experience in different domains. And finally, we would like to share with you our vision, because we have evolved our approach related to blockchain. We understand that blockchain is not just a technology, it's an enabler for real transformation, and we're working very hard creating the concept of digital ecosystem thanks to this technology. Because in the real approach that we are having with clients is a fact that everything that could be done with blockchain could be done with the current technologies. So the idea is to understand and to change the mindset of our clients in order to identify where blockchains makes the difference in order to create the phenomenon of the digital ecosystem. In fact, according McKinsey, the empowerment of the digital ecosystem is going to change the new digital economy, and by 2025, 1/3 of the world economy could be based on digital ecosystem. So this is a very key statement, and the idea is to identify the role of the blockchain in the new digital ecosystem. So let me introduce myself. My name is Roberto Fernandez Hergueta. I'm Global Head of Blockchain and Digital Ecosystem at everis. I have been working with this emerging technology 5 years ago. We have started to create some meaningful consortium in Spain. It is called Alastria. It was the first multi-sectoral consortium focused on blockchain. I'm board member of this consortium. Beyond that, we are working with the IDB. IDB stands for Inter-American Development Bank, and we are creating a regional infrastructure for all the Latin American and Caribbean countries in order to create, on top of this blockchain infrastructure that is based on Hyperlayer Fabric, some meaningful application focused on social and financial inclusion, because as you know, Latin America is one of the regions in the world with the high level of inequality. So that's a very interesting project where we are working with some usual use cases focused on blockchain, like digital identity, how to use international payments, and all these challenges focus on social inclusion in these countries that they need to shake their digital economy in order to compete in the real world. So everis is an NTT Data company. Everis was bought by the Japanese group in 2014. Everis is a multinational consulting. We cover from business and strategy and application development, maintenance, and outsourcing services. We are more than 20,000 consultants around the world. We are present in 18 countries, focusing Europe and Latin America above all, and our turnover is around 150 billion of euros in the last fiscal year. So that's our highlight, and beyond that, as I mentioned before, we have been bought by the Japanese IT group. NTT Data is one of the top 5 global IT service providers in the world. We have presence in more than 80 countries, and we have indirect presence in more than 190 countries. We are considered leaders in the blockchain arena thanks to the different studies of several analysts. And as you can see in these highlights, we are trying to help our clients in their digital transformation, trying to identify the role of our clients in this new digital economy. So in terms of blockchain and our vision, as I mentioned before, we are living the second era of digital transformation. So we have been talking a lot about digital transformation, but being honest, it's more focused on digitalization because everybody's talking about transformation, but transformation means the word transform means to reshape, to rethink the business processes. And being honest, what a lot of companies and governments are doing are more focused on digitalization. We understand digitalization as the way to digitalize the current business processes. So right now, we are in the second wave of the digital transformation, and we have the opportunity to create value in the new digital economy. So these are the questions that we are trying to face with our clients, and we identify that blockchain is a key enabler for this new way of the digital transformation. So we are trying to put on the table of the C-level these kind of questions. Are we competing properly in the digital economy? How long does it take to us to launch digital products and services to consumers or to citizens? And being honest, we are really creating value with the new business concepts because there are a lot of people talking about the same business use cases based on blockchain and other technologies, but we are transforming anything, so that's the question. Beyond that, as I mentioned before, we are focusing the digitalization versus the transformation, and we are right now in the current economy, several inputs that are changing the society, like circular economy, sharing economy, the monetization of the cost of living, the society of zero cost that are changing the way that we are facing the new digital business. So that's a key. Beyond that, as you know, blockchain provides some key features like decentralization, tokenization, and there are appearing some new ways of collaboration focused on the concept of co-petition. That means collaboration over competition. So we are working in this concept of new economy based on ecosystem where blockchain is key and is essential to become relevant in the new digital economy. So with that information, this is our approach from a business perspective where blockchain is the way that we are using with our clients in order to change their mindset and to identify the new business models related to these emerging technologies. Right now, as a company, as a group, we have more than 40 projects focused on production because we have been working in the past in the era of POCs, and the idea is how to scale that project, and we are facing a real challenge when we are talking about evolve this kind of projects to production. And they are not technical challenges, they are more focused on the governance and the economical model, because when you are creating ecosystem, you have to ensure that all the participants have a win-win relationship. So in this kind of project that I mentioned before, focus on how to create blockchain infrastructure, one of the key issues that we are facing is how to create the economic model in order to ensure that all the nodes that are provided by the different companies that are involved in the blockchain ecosystems make sense for them. Okay. So beyond that, we have several assets related to blockchain. Let me introduce our trust platform that is beyond the concept of digital identity, because when we are talking about digital identity, we are more focused on self-sovereign identity, but what we are suffering a lot in order to scale this concept of digital identity in some geographies like Europe with the regulation, with the GDPR, with the ADAS framework, and even in the Latin America with some countries that are following the NIST standards. So one of the key activities that we are facing is how to align the legal and the standardization arena with the technology. So the idea is to combine, to provide this multidisciplinary approach focusing on digital technologies plus regulation plus standardization. Okay? This is a sample of the trust framework that covers all the agents, the tools that are elements to create this digital identity solution and trust platform. So beyond that, the idea is to split, to create different components. We have here some of the meaningful ones in our trust platform that are the K-Trust wallet, the K-Trust provider, and the K-Trust hub in order to create this trust framework. Let me share. I'm going to move quickly for this initial introduction. Later we are dive deeper in the IoT plus blockchain activity that we are doing right now, but let me share with you some key reference that we are right now working in the blockchain arena as everis NTT Data group. As I mentioned before, we are working in this meaningful project that is called LACchain. LACchain is the global alliance for blockchain for Latin American and the Caribbean countries, more than 25 countries, and we are creating a blockchain infrastructure based on Hyperledger vessel. We are working very close to the Pegasus and the Consensus team in this initiative because Consensus and ourselves are the two main partners of this alliance with the IDB. The idea is to create this infrastructure for all the countries in order to create a marketplace of decentralized application focused on social inclusion. In the next slide, I have some of the key use cases we are working right now. The main case is digital identity. We are working right now creating the standard of the LACchain ID that is aligned with the main standard of this digital identity. We are combining not only our solution, K-Trust, but also UPort One. And then we are focused on a project related with a project that is called Better Together, focused on Venezuelan migrants and the tragedy that are suffering in Venezuela and the countries that are receiving a lot of migrants. And as you know, they don't have identity, so they have problems to receive the key services from the different governments that are involved in this initiative. Beyond that, we are working in payments, the concept of international payments and conditional transfer. We are working in terms of land rights, because we have a small POC in Colombia in the Pescadito project that is focused on provide this kind of land rights for the Colombian population. So it's very meaningful. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, the main outcome is to create a techno-legal framework because we have created different environments in order to create the accountability for launch POC of real projects. So that's a very interesting initiative. The reference architecture and the infrastructure that is based on Hyperlayer Fabric was being standardized for the ITU. As you know, ITU is the United Nations organisms that are standardization, the group of blockchain and DLT group. And LACchain is one of the meaningful infrastructure in the ITU group. Beyond that, other meaningful project that we are working on is the project called EPSI, European Blockchain Service and Infrastructure, and it's the same idea of philosophy of the previous one, the LACchain one. In this case, the European Commission are creating a regional infrastructure for all the governments in the European Union. The idea is how to create this digital ecosystem focused on the governments of the European Union and focus on 4 use cases: digital identity for the European citizens, all the issues related with education, the diplomas and the certificates based on the Europass standards and data model, and how to exchange value information between the different public entities that are involved in the European Union. And this project is based on Hyperlayer, based on Hyperlayer Fabric as well. As you know, everis NTT Data are working very hard in the Hyperlayer Quill group that are running in the Hyperledger consortium. So I think it's a good example of that. And finally, related to a meaningful project that we are facing, this is the project called Cradles, and this is focused on trade finance and supply chains. We started with some meaningful companies in Japan, Tokyo Marine, Ikido Insurance, and right now we have created a consortium in Japan with the main companies in this supply chain and transport and logistic arena that are trying to make their current business processes more efficient using these emerging technologies, because as you know, in a process with different stakeholders, with a lot of manual paper exchange on information, this kind of solution based on blockchain makes sense in order to reduce significantly all the operation costs comparing to the current system trade operations. So I think it's one of the meaningful projects that we are working right now. So just thank you for your attention for this previous introduction. I'm going to zoom in the combination of blockchain and IoT. So as you know, IoT have been facing some specific challenge that, in our humble opinion, the combination of blockchain and IoT makes sense, because blockchain could be the silver bullet for solve these scenarios that are difficult for IoT scale. And I think with blockchain, we could evolve very, very quickly. So why? Because I have several statements to share with you. As you know, blockchain could provide privacy and reliability by design in the IoT arena. Beyond that, as you know, we could track all the operation and we could allocate in an immutable way, so it could allow to all the stakeholders in the IoT value chains obtain savings in that domain. Beyond that, we could create a resilient ecosystem, because we could eliminate the single points of failure. As I mentioned before, it allows you to create a trust framework combining all the information that the different devices are providing. So it makes sense to combine all these emerging technologies. Beyond that, the layer is tamper-proof and cannot be manipulated. So it could be essential for some specific projects. For instance, in my country, in Spain, right now, the Ministry of Transport and Logistics has launched a tender in order to create a national infrastructure based on blockchain. And they are trying to combine IoT and blockchain in order to create this whole vision of what is happening in terms of interoperability, because as you know, in the transport and logistic domains, there are a lot of stakeholders, so sometimes it's very complex to track the containers, to track some of the different elements that are key for all the challenges that are in this domain. Beyond that, as you know, the devices are providing a lot of data. Blockchain could keep this immutable record that could be essential for in the upcoming operation where you are missing different data. You could analyze and you could obtain some conclusions thanks to the data, and blockchain is providing the truth machine for all the information that we are having with that. Okay. So let me explain some projects that we have been working in this domain, combining IoT and blockchain, and then we will zoom this on a specific project that we have been working the last year and we have put in production some months ago. And I think it could be interesting because we have been working a lot with the utilities and energy companies. This is called the Trinity. It was a smart plug that we have made with an Italian utilities company. In Italy and in Spain, they have launched, there are a lot of pressure focused on the electric car. And one of the challenges is how to create this concept of how to manage, how to handle the electric car shares, above all in condominiums. So the idea is to create a concept of electricity as a service or utilities as a service. So the idea is with this plug, you could tokenize the kilowatt-hour and you are paying for your own electricity, even if you are using your own smart plug in other situations. So with this project, we have created with our own IoT company this plug, and we incorporate the concept of the microchip, that is a crypto chip that we introduced the cryptography of blockchain in order to provide digital identity to the things. So the idea in this project is how we could tokenize kilowatt-hour, how could we combine the crypto chip that provides digital identity to the smart plugs, and you interact with a mobile application in order to use your own electricity. So this is one of the projects that we have been working, combining IoT plus blockchain. Other sample that we have been working is with the Valencia port. Valencia port is one of the most innovative ports in Europe. And one of the projects that we have been working focused on Hyperlayer Fabric is how to tokenize all the trading documentation. As you know, it's based on letter of credit, bill of lading, and how to track and trace the containers and all the packets that the containers provide. So we are combining the powerful of blockchain in order to tokenize the documents, in order to create this platform in order to interoperate in real time with the different stakeholders that are involved in this kind of supply chain projects, the shipper, the carrier, the authority ports, the customs. So they are exchanging the information of the different documents, as I mentioned before, the letter of credit, the bill of lading, even the insurance policies, because as you know, with the carrier and with the cargo, you have some challenge related with insurance policies, and we have even eliminated the documentation between the bank of the exporter of the importer. Beyond that, we use the IoT in order to track the containers in the domain of the port in order to facilitate the way to transport this container with the different companies of transport that are involved to move this kind of containers. So this is another sample of real project that we are combining IoT plus blockchain. And the other project that I would like to highlight is this project that we have been working with the Ministry of Agriculture of the government of Spain, because Spain has suffered several fraud related with the red tuna. So the idea is how to use the concept of the tractor chip that I introduced previously in order to track and trace the tuna from the moment that the tuna is captured to the final phase related to the land transportation, okay? This project is, we are using Hyperlayer Fabric as well, and the idea is how to combine the information that the different guys that are involved in this process are providing with, thanks to the tractor chip that identifies in a unique way the tuna. Okay, so let's dive deeper in the final section, more focused in a real project that was the project I would like to share with you, that is how to use blockchain in the utilities arena, focus on this specific domain that is industrial incident management. So I think it's better we have prepared a specific video in order to share with you the highlights of the project and the context of them. So let's share with you the video. Just 1 second.
In today's fast-growing industry, industrial systems tend to be increasingly complex. In order to maintain mission-critical operations under a stable environment, industrial control systems, or ICS, provide much-needed automation to industrial processes. Among different types of specialized equipment, the Programmable Logic Controller, or PLC, stands out as the brains of the operation, receiving inputs from all kinds of sensors and giving instructions to mechanical and electrical apparatus. Every piece of information is centralized in a human-machine interface called a SCADA system for the plant operators to see. The SCADA system is in charge of process monitoring and data acquisition, and technicians will rely on it to make real-time decisions. In case of equipment failure, the PLC will communicate to the SCADA system the nature of the malfunction. In the control room, an operator opens an incident that will result in a printed work order for the supervisor to sign. The head of maintenance receives the signed work order and dispatches a team to solve the incident in the field. After this mostly manual process, a team is finally deployed and the paperwork is filled by the supervisor. In order to automate this tedious process that takes place multiple times a day, this blockchain-based solution automatically opens an incident in the ledger when it receives an alert from the SCADA system. at the same time that it's displayed to the operator. This marks the beginning of the digital asset lifecycle, and every event that takes place from now on by any party involved will be linked to the incident, ensuring full operational traceability. The physical work order is substituted by a smart contract in the blockchain that contains all the business clauses and the technical details regarding the maintenance tasks to be performed. The head of maintenance and the team supervisor receive the digital work order and update the status of the incident in the blockchain and will close it when the work is finished. Many companies rely on third-party service providers for maintenance tasks. The use of smart contracts and event traceability in the ledger can ensure proper SLA enforcement through seamless KPI calculation and automatic timely payment to contractors, reducing the number of disputes and lead times by substantial margins.
Okay, so that's the project I would like to share with you. As the video mentioned, there are challenges related with the current utility companies that are managing millions of devices in these programmable logic controllers. And as you know, there is a layer that are joining all the different information provided by these programmable logic controllers that are the SCADA system. So with all this information, there are some plant operators that are receiving all these alerts, and then they need to connect with third parties that are in charge in the field to identify if everything is okay related with the electromechanical equipment that the utilities companies have in the field. So this is the current situation related with the industrial controlling services. You have three layers: the field equipment that are missing with different programmable logic controller, and this all information are joining the control room that have the global vision of what is happening with all the systems that critical infrastructure that are handle the utilities company. So when incident takes place, there are some manual information that you have to connect with different companies, stakeholders, with different ways to connect. So it's very difficult because this kind of infrastructure was made in the past with different technologies, with different typologies of devices. So sometimes the current system map is like different silos. So it's very, very complex to have the global pictures, and you have to involve a lot of manual and human activities in order to know what is happening in real time with all this activity. So the challenge that we're facing at the beginning of the project this following one, as I mentioned before, the ICS are usually deployed gradually over long periods. So it was a problem when the chain of the custody of the incident is often broken. So you have little information, and the guys that are in charge to go to the field and to analyze what is happening, there are a lot of problems, there are disputes, there are different information, so you have to make settlements in order to provide the real situation. So with this kind of dispute, it's very complex to be efficient with these current business processes. So the companies are wasting a lot of time, a lot of money in order to identify what is the current situation related to the incident. So as you know, it makes sense to use this kind of technology, blockchain, because we have different stakeholders, we have different points of view between the third parties, the control room. So we have split the use of blockchain in these different layers, and the field level, we define the event detection layer. Then at the programmable logic controller level, we use the transmission of data to the SCADA system that is in charge to register the incident on top of a blockchain infrastructure. And on top of the blockchain infrastructure, we incorporate some application layer that could be key for the evolution of the system, because we started to use some smart contract on that in order to make some automation in the communication and in the interaction with the different third parties. And the main challenge with the project was, being honest, how to create a semantic business dictionary in order to make the interoperability between the different layers. We use the blockchain as the truth machine in order to have all the immutable registers, and we are using the capability to define business rules thanks to the properties of the smart contracts in order to connect the control room with the different third parties. In terms of the infrastructure of the production environment, we use the Hyperlayer Fabric 1.4 version, and we have even tokenized and dockerized the platform, and we have defined 4 Kafka nodes and 3 Zookeeper nodes. And of course, in order to interact the different layers, we use the APIs with the previous action that I mentioned before, focus on this semantic business design or API design. In terms of transactions per minute in the test environment, we launch 3,500 transactions per minute. Right now in production, we have in several utilities central 400 transactions per minute. And we have split the architecture reference in these different layers. I think that you are familiar with the ISO 307 standardization. There is a very good paper that they identify the different layers that you have to keep in mind when you are creating a blockchain architecture. Following this principle, we have split the architecture in these several layers. We have the token swarm, we have the different peers, and on top the integration layer in order to via API to connect with the different systems. So we are right now in production with this initial phase. In the second phase, we are facing new challenge in order to incorporate to the system. The main challenge that we are facing are the following ones. We are working in the concept of automatic payments. As you know, the different companies that we are trying to involve in the chain of the incidents, they are using SLAs. So the idea is how to apply via chain code, via smart roles, the concept of tokenized money. I don't know if you are familiar with the electronic money. At least in Europe, the European Central Bank has defined money. We have 3 kinds of money. We have cash money, we have the money provided by the banks, and we have a specific policy related with electronic money. So as we have the opportunity with the Don't Touch Code session in the morning, they mention some use cases that are working with Hyperlayer version. In the slide, they mention IO Builders. IO Builders is a startup participated by everis. Everis has more than 25 of IO Builders, and we put tokenized money on top of blockchain infrastructure. We are using electronic money on top of a blockchain infrastructure in order to make real payments, make payments in real time. So we are working right now in this feature in the evolution of the project. Beyond that, we could use the blockchain and its features in order to make the inventory management more efficient. And finally, with all the information, with the quality that the new architecture provides to the data, we could use new tools in order to create something related to or something similar to a predictive maintenance in order to identify to be more efficient in order to predict what could happen with the SCADA and the incidents in the system. So thanks to this trust environment, we are combining and we are evolving the IoT use cases to a new level thanks to blockchain. So we are very happy to participate in this kind of project because the combination of those all emerging technologies makes sense for our clients. So beyond that and beyond blockchain, in our honest in our humble opinion, what makes sense is how to think and how to create this new value for the new digital business and for the new digital economy thanks to the ecosystem. So we believe that right now we are facing a lot of challenge with create new digital ecosystem makes sense. And being honest, the challenge is not the technology, the challenge is not the purpose of even the business related to the ecosystem. We are focusing on how to define governance model that could make sense for all these different participants that are trying to be relevant in the ecosystem, because not all the companies are in charge or are able to be the orchestrator of the digital ecosystem. So we need to identify the role of the different participants in this ecosystem. So this is very key. And beyond the governance model, you have to combine with the economical model and how to define the incentives that make sense. Because when you are creating a blockchain infrastructure, we are trying to have some level of decentralization, because we believe that it doesn't make sense to create a model with a blockchain service provider that manages all the blockchain infrastructure. So if you try to achieve some high level of decentralization, you need to define this economical model in order to identify what makes sense for the different participants that are providing the nodes of the infrastructure. So that's very important in order to have a successful digital ecosystem. So beyond that, you need to redefine the reference architecture that we have in the current companies, because they are having some challenge in order to create these new digital business solutions. So they are moving from silos systems maps to new digital ecosystem platforms, and these are key. So the APIs are the new fuel for this new digital economy. And in our current experience, blockchain is only a part of this global picture of the new digital architecture. So thank you all for your attention. For us, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to work in this Hyperledger family. So we are delighted to have the opportunity to share our lesson learned, our betaholic philosophy, because we are learning a lot with this kind of project. We make a lot of mistakes. We are betaholic in our DNA. So thank you. I think it's a privilege for everis and NTT Data to have the opportunity to learn with all you guys in this environment. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. That's all. Thank you.